Final Fantasy VI, the Drama Series, Season 2, Episode 1. A recap of the events of Season 1 are shown. Terra storming Narshe with Imperial guards but collapsing in front of the Esper, Locke assuring Terra that he'll help her until she gets her memories back, them escaping Figaro Castle as it sinks with Edgar explaining that they're part of the Returners opposing the Empire, Bannon asking Terra if she'll be that hope and she decides yes, the plan to meet up at Narshe, Edgar telling the mayor that they'll fend off the Empire as they pursue the Esper, Terra telling Kefka off as he teleports away, and lastly, Terra facing the Esper once more and turning into her Esper self and flying off. Cue the Final Fantasy VI title. The group is gathered at Arvis's discussing what happened. Celes says what everyone's thinking, that Terra looked like an Esper when she flew off. Edgar thinks to himself that even as an Esper, she is quite the beauty. Someone comes in saying that they got reports of a white-purple being flying over the mountains southeast. Edgar says that they can use the castle to cross the mountains, which confuses everyone except Locke and Sabin. Sabin says he'd like to go to see the castle after all these years. Locke expresses interest in going as part of his promise to be there for Terra until her memories return, but asks Celes to join them in a way to try to convey that he's not interested in her. Celes finds it endearing though and agrees to go along, saying if she's connected to the Espers it'd be best for them to get to Terra before the Empire does. Edgar adds that with the Esper still being in Narshe, he asks Cyan if he and Gao would be okay staying behind in case the Empire comes back. Cyan is understanding and agrees, saying that they'll make sure everything is safe in Narshe. Sabin shakes Cyan's hand and Cyan pleads with Sabin to take it all in when he sees his home again and to cherish it. The scene changes to the four at Figaro Castle and Sabin is excited to go around and explore. Edgar explains to Celes that the castle has the ability to go underground and travel to the other side of the mountains and that it was an immense technological feat that his parents finally completed after generations of work on it. I've gone ahead and sent notice to everyone to be indoors once the sun has set and we'll have the castle travel overnight. Until then, everyone is excited to see Sabin commenting on how buff he got since he left, and he shares about the training sessions he had with Master Duncan. It's evening, and Edgar set up Locke and Celes to sleep in a guest room together, and winks at Locke while Edgar and Sabin have their own room as the royal family. Celes is questioning whether or not they'll be able to sleep while the castle is moving, as Locke is focused on how Edgar set them up in a room with one queen-size bed. He maintains his composure though and says that they can use the time then to get to know each other. Celes likes the idea and invites him to the bed with her to chat. They share some anecdotes but don't go too deep and the castle starts to move. It turns out it moves fairly smoothly while making a noise similar to white noise. They spoon and Celes is thinking about how Locke said he'd protect her and ponders how different her life is becoming compared to when she was a general. The scene shifts to Edgar and Sabin as they reminisce their time at the castle. It feels like it was yesterday when they got the news of their parents being really sick. A flashback occurs as a young Edgar and Sabin are trying to process the news. Sabin, teary-eyed and angry, tells Edgar how no one seems to care and are just trying to figure out who the new king should be. They say the Empire poisoned them. Why aren't we talking about how to get back at them? Why is no one talking about how to help Mom and Dad get better? Edgar hugs him, trying to explain that it must be a part of running the castle. Sabin doesn't like that and thinks that there's more that could be done if not constrained by the castle walls. Edgar makes a proposition that they flip a coin. If heads, Edgar will be king and run the castle, and Sabin would be free to leave with a clear conscience to do what he thinks would be best. If tails, Sabin would be king and Edgar would do his best to support him in ways to overcome the limitation of castle life. Sabin accepts and Edgar throws the two-headed coin, a gift from his mom with each side resembling each brother. The flashback ends and Edgar finishes the story while smiling. And you traded the throne for your freedom. Sabin explains that he wanted to go off and get stronger so that he could come back and protect his home. That's why he trained with Master Duncan. Edgar assures Sabin that he thinks Mom and Dad would be proud of them. Sabin agrees, saying that Edgar has done quite a bit himself leading the castle and being a part of the Returners. Let's see this to the end for them. The next morning comes and the castle emerges out of the underground. Edgar and Sabin meet up with Locke and Celes asking how they slept. Locke and Celes smile and say it was actually one of the best nights of sleep they've had in a while. Edgar, pleased to hear this, chuckles and says, "Great, well we are good to continue the journey from here." Season 2, Episode 2. Celes tells the group that she'd like to stop by Kohlingen to stock up on some items for the journey. Edgar gives Locke a look, but Locke agrees to go, saying it's a good idea. They make it to town, and as they start heading toward the shop, Locke mentions that since he's in town, there's another thing he wants to check up on. Celes doesn't pay it any mind, and she, Edgar, and Sabin continue their shopping. Sabin looks into some new brass knuckles. Edgar's checking out some of their mechanical weapons, while Celes looks into some magic restorative items. Celis asks if there's anything they should pick up for Locke, but Edgar says nah, he should be good. Worst case scenario, he can pickpocket anyone who attacks us, and laughs. Edgar adds, sorry I couldn't get you 2 separate rooms at the castle. The other rooms just happened to be taken. Celis says there was no need to apologize as it was rather pleasant. Edgar says he's glad but doesn't feel like he can ask more about it. The scene shifts to Locke visiting an old man. He greets Locke. Ah, welcome back. She continues to be preserved well. Locke gives a small thank you and proceeds to go downstairs and meets a woman lying down on a bed with her eyes closed. Hey Rachel, I happen to be in the area and thought I could catch you up on how things have been. Locke proceeds to explain finding Terra, who was enslaved by the Empire who can use magic, the developments with the Returners fighting back against the Empire, and how he met a second person who can use magic. Feeling slightly guilty for his developed feelings for Celis, he avoids talking much about her but instead focuses on how maybe with magic he can get closer to somehow bringing her back. It was good seeing you, but I have to go. See you later, Rachel. The old man assures Locke that he'll continue to take good care of her. Locke thanks him and heads out. Locke runs back to the shop and sees Edgar and Celis outside and asks if they got everything they needed. Celis says yes and asks what he went off to do. Locke answers vaguely of going to see an old friend. Celis starts to remember what Edgar mentioned about Locke having a complicated past. A slightly suspicious Celis says innocently, I'm surprised your friend didn't come up when we were sharing funny childhood stories. Edgar's avoiding eye contact and Sabin joins the group from the shop greeting Locke. Sabin says that one of the merchants from the shop saw Locke run off as we were headed in and asked if he was running to see Rachel. He wanted me to tell you to see him before you left town. Locke thanks Sabin and says to the group, yeah, let's stop by the cafe and I can bring you all up to speed on Rachel. Let me speak with the merchant first. Celis at this point is thinking to herself how a former general could let herself let these petty emotions of infatuation cloud her judgment and resolves to see Locke as a friend only and to have that clear boundary. They're all in the cafe and Locke explains the story of Rachel, which only Edgar knows currently, and how their last treasure hunt led to her amnesia only for her memory to come back after an attack from the Empire shortly before her death. Celis apologizes for his loss and concludes out loud, oh, so you went to visit her grave? Edgar looks down out of discomfort. Locke stumbles his words a little, explaining that he had known of a way to preserve her body and that he couldn't shake the feeling that there was a way to bring her back. Celis has so many thoughts at this point, all that lead to the same thought. What am I doing? She tries to delicately advise, I don't think you can bring back the dead. Locke, feeling like no one could understand while also feeling discouraged, hearing this from someone who can use magic, sadly agrees. Either way, Celis sees that Locke has clearly not moved on and resolves to just be friends and to focus on the mission of finding Terra before the Empire does. At the end of all this, Shadow walks into the cafe, who Sabin recognizes. He greets him, asking how he and Interceptor have been. Shadow responds, 3,000. Sabin says what? Shadow repeats and adds, 3,000 gold if you need my services. Sabin laughs it off and says that he thinks they're good actually, but thanks him. Locke interrupts, asking if Shadow would actually be willing to pick up a package the merchant is expecting tomorrow and deliver it to the address Rachel is staying at. Shadow repeats himself, 3,000. Locke says, deal. Edgar finally speaks again and says, well, let's get some chocobos. We'll ride to the town of Jidor down south and ask if people have seen Terra. Shadow sleeps at the inn so he can get the package the next day, and we see a vivid dream that he has where a man named Clyde and his friend Baron make off with the 1 million gold pieces, and as they're escaping, Baron gets attacked by a ninja star and starts to bleed out. He asks Clyde to kill him to avoid the torture he'd suffer, but Clyde can't do it and runs away. Shadow wakes up with a sweat. He wipes it off and leaves the inn, ending the episode. Season 2, Episode 3. We open at Narsh with Cyan and Gao returning to Arvis's house from a patrol. Gao asks, why we do this? Cyan explains that they are playing their part in defending this town from the potential threat of the Empire. Cyan, having been a retainer at Doma, understands how there are some jobs that are thankless and not in the spotlight, but that shouldn't mean that he gives less energy. Gao responds, but nothing happened and friend's gone. Cyan explains that it's okay as he's here, but maybe they can find a new friend. Let's do an extra walk around and get to know people. Shortly after stepping out, a man is chasing a pickpocket yelling for help as he has stolen a bejeweled hairpin. Cyan tells Gao, let's go, and they start chasing him. They end up on the cliffside where the Esper is and find that the man is holding a Moogle hostage. The pickpocket says, don't come any closer or the Moogle gets it. Gao, with his experience with monsters, gestures and says, Kupo! The Moogle perks up and excitedly starts dancing, which starts affecting the terrain they're on, causing both himself and the pickpocket to slip near the edge of the cliff. The pickpocket asks for help, saying that he'll return the hairpin. Cyan says to Gao to go quickly to rescue the Moogle, and he goes for the pickpocket. But the pickpocket tries to pull Cyan off the cliff while using him to get back up. Cyan, however, being the master swordsman he is, pulls out his sword and cuts the man's arm off, and he falls to his death. Cyan laments that he couldn't save the hairpin. Gao and the Moogle come over, and the Moogle speaks. "I'm Mog, thanks for saving me, let's be friends, Kupo!" Cyan and Gao are shocked that Mog can talk, but Gao excitedly accepts and shakes his hand. Cyan welcomes Mog and they return to the town as Cyan thinks about how even at his age, he's still having new experiences. Now back with Edgar's team, and they are in Zozo. Sabin asks if the people of Jidor really saw Terra fly this way, as the town is run down and full of thugs and the like. The team is approached by a group of them with intimidating faces asking what they're doing here. Edgar takes charge and explains that they're looking for someone who flew here and if they've seen them. They start laughing and get in his face. "Sure, Mr. Rich Boy, I'll tell you for 100,000 gold pieces. That's fair, isn't it?" One of the other thugs starts walking to Celis. "Or give us this fine woman." Locke intercepts his path while twirling his dagger, saying, "Or maybe we cut the information out of you." Another group member asks, "Do you think you can just waltz into our territory and threaten us? Do you think it's just us you're dealing with here?" Sabin chimes in, "Well then I guess it's time to see how far I've come with my training," and suplexes the group member that called Edgar Mr. Rich Boy. Everyone starts fighting as Sabin starts using pummel, Edgar is shooting people with his auto crossbow, Celis starts using her magic to freeze the enemies, and Locke covers the thugs behind her. Some of them have sickles for weapons and are throwing wrenches. Celis switches from ice to cure to heal themselves, and Edgar busts out the flash tool and blinds everyone for a momentary pause. A man from the roof of a building starts laughing and is clapping. The thugs decide at this point to stop trying to fight. The man on the roof yells, "My name is Dadaluma. I'm the leader here in this town. What's the meaning of all this?" Edgar responds, "We're looking for someone who flew here." Dadaluma says, "Ah, yes. Come up here through the building and we can get this all sorted out." Edgar's group meets him inside on the second floor. Dadaluma explains that it's quite the beautiful creature that's upstairs, but she's under their protection now. Edgar sternly responds, "She's our friend and we're taking her home." Dadaluma says, "Not if I have anything to say about it. Let's settle this in a fight, just the two of us. Leader versus leader. I'll even let you use those tools." The fight begins and Dadaluma goes for a punch. Edgar dodges, but Dadaluma has another one coming and gets Edgar in the face. Edgar says to himself, "Well, he said I could use my tools," and shoots his auto crossbow. Dadaluma rolls to dodge and goes for a kick, but Edgar quickly busts out the noise blaster and the noise startles Dadaluma and makes him lose balance. Edgar trips him and takes out his drill, holding it to his face. "I'd say I won." Dadaluma laughs and says, "You got me. We were actually tasked with protecting her." Edgar asks by who, and Dadaluma says, "You'll see. Go on upstairs." The group goes upstairs and find Terra in her Esper form on a bed in a trance. Edgar rushes to her, trying to ask if she's okay. An old man sitting in a chair on the other side of the room says, "She can't hear you." The group asks who he is and he responds, "I am Ramu, the Esper." And the episode ends. Season 2, Episode 4. The episode starts with a repeat of Ramu saying that he is Ramu, the Esper. The conversation plays out the same as in the game, ending with Ramu explaining that the Empire has it wrong in draining the magic power of an Esper, but rather only once an Esper becomes Magicite can their magic power fully be gained. Locke thinks to himself, maybe there's a Magicite that can bring Rachel back. Ramu gives the group some Magicite of his friends fleeing the Empire, and Ramu gives himself to them as one too, saying that the War of the Magi must not be repeated, and to save his friends from the Empire. The group, after thanking Ramu for his sacrifice, to go back to the inn at Jidor to regroup. Locke is wondering how they're going to get to the Empire as they're on the southern continent, and no ship would dare go to them. As they're talking, the impresario runs in frantically and looks at the group exclaiming, "Maria! There you are!" Celis responds, I think you got the wrong girl." The impresario takes a closer look and saddens, apologizing that she looks so much like her. He adds that he's worried that Setzer abducted her. Locke questions more. Who are Setzer and Maria? The impresario is shocked. How could you not know? He starts talking to himself. Have our performances not reached the masses? No, these simpletons must not have learned anything about art. He continues, but to the group. Maria is our star performer whose voice has delighted crowds who are fortunate enough to hear her in their lifetimes. Setzer is our most generous donor, but he sent a letter to us saying that he was going to take her at the end of our upcoming show. With Maria missing though, I'm worried he has done it prematurely and flown off with her on his airship. Everyone's ears perk up. Edgar asks, his airship? Celis adds, If we could get to Setzer, we could ask him to fly us south. The impresario says that it doesn't matter because without Maria, he won't come to the show. Locke has an idea though and says, but wait, Celis here already looks like Maria. We can have her take her place, and then when Setzer comes, we'll follow him to his airship. You get your performance and we get our ferry south. Celis objects, what? I'm a general, not some opera floozy. The impresario adds his thought that no one could hold a candle to Maria singing anyway. Sabin encourages Celis, just sing a little and see if we could get by. Besides, this could be fun. Celis ponders for a moment, closes her eyes, and sings Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, La. The guys laugh, and the impresario, with no other option, comments that she's on pitch at least. She just needs water. Dejected, he says, fine, you have the part. Let us go to the opera immediately to get you prepared. Season 2, Episode 5. The episode shows text saying, 2 weeks ago, and it starts with a man reading a rejection letter addressed to Siegfried and Jidor from the opera saying that they decided to go with a different choice to play the lead role of Draco for the biggest play of the year, Draco and Maria. He clenches his fist and bangs the table. He says to himself, well, let's see how they'll do their show if they don't have their Maria. We return to present day where the group is at the opera. Edgar and Sabin are talking to each other. You know, I didn't think stopping the Empire was going to include watching the most anticipated show of the year, haha. Sabin adds that he just hopes things aren't too dull for Cyan and Gao back in Narsh. There's a quick shot of Cyan practicing his swordsmanship from the different spells unleashed from Mog's dancing and Gao watching. Locke tells the others that he's going to check in on Celis. He sees her dressed for the role of Maria and he turns red. They have a similar conversation as the game, except when Celis asks why Locke saved her, he responds that she reminded him of someone. She answers, Rachel? She starts going into how she felt like there was something back in Figaro Castle, but he clearly hasn't moved on. He pleads that he has to do everything he can to help her if he sees that there's hope since he blames himself for Rachel's fate. Celis explains that she very well knows about regrets having served the Empire, and as she's about to continue, she remembers her commitment to herself to only see Locke as a friend, knowing that this train of thought is coming from a place deeper than friendship. She apologizes for the initial question and says she has to focus on remembering her lines. Locke apologizes too for where he is and wishes her good luck a little dejectedly. Locke returns to his seat as the others tell him great timing as the show is about to start. The performance plays out following the same story as the game where Draco was pledged to Maria, but they were taken by the West, and Prince Ralse had taken Maria to be his wife, ripping her away from Draco. Celis then has her solo, having remembered all her lines and making it to the top of the castle, tossing the bouquet. While she was making her way to the top, Siegfried, who's in the audience, is stunned to see that Maria is there performing when she should be in his basement. The song finishes and Locke is moved, shedding a tear relating to the pain of love not working out in more ways than one. Siegfried gets up and decides that he'll sabotage the show a different way. As he's making his way to backstage, one of the staff quickly makes their way to the impresario and whispers the news, to which he says, "What?" Locke, sitting next to them, asks what's wrong. The impresario says that the person they rejected as Draco was seen backstage. He must be up to no good. Locke says that he'll go to stop them. Edgar and Sabin sit back to continue watching the show. As Locke makes his way back, he sees a spat taking place between Siegfried and the staff as Siegfried is trying to mess with equipment. Locke approaches him, saying that it looks like he doesn't belong here. Siegfried responds, "And you don't? Listen, this doesn't concern you. I'm trying to improve the show." Siegfried is about to cut a rope, but Locke tackles him and they end up on the stage. Their abrupt collision on stage frightens the chocobos and they flail around, taking out Draco and Ralse, who were standing next to them about to do a joust. Locke gets up and declares that he will be the one to wed Maria. Siegfried objects, challenging him, saying that he will do so, winning the hearts of the crowds. The impresario quickly gets the orchestra to play battle music as Locke and Siegfried face off. Locke decides to try out the Ramu Magicite and brings down some lightning that Siegfried wasn't expecting, and then disarms him with his knife and announces himself as the winner. As the crowds cheer, a voice from Setzer, "But in the end, Maria is mine!" and he swoops down, picks her up, and leaves using the ropes. Edgar and Sabin yell, "That's him!" and they quickly run off. The impresario announces, "And that concludes our show!" and gives a big bow. Season 2, Episode 6. Everyone is cheering after the curtains have closed and Setzer leaves through a high-up window backstage carrying Celis, where there's a plan he had set up to easily walk from the opera roof to the airship. Locke climbs a ladder to get to the window Setzer and Celis escape from to follow onto the airship and inside. While Locke was climbing, Edgar and Sabin are outside the airship on the ground, wondering how they'll get inside. Setzer had carried Celis to one room in the airship, but with all of the adrenaline of capturing her having gone, He realizes that she's not Maria. Locke, while looking for the room Setzer and Celis went to, starts hearing banging on a door and opens it to let Edgar and Sabin in. Celis apologizes that she's not Maria, but explains that she and her friends learned of him and really needed his help. Setzer responds, "Your friends?" And now they hear the three calling out Celis' name. Celis says that that's them. Setzer calls them in and Celis explains the whole situation. Setzer hesitates as the Empire made him rich from the casino parties he would host. Celis counters with examples of the horrible things the Empire has done, including taking the lives of loved ones. Setzer, moved by her conviction, compliments her, saying that she's more captivating than Maria. Celis blushes a little and Setzer says that he'll fly them to the Empire if Celis agrees to marry him. Locke says, "Hold on," as he's sure a different arrangement could be settled on. Edgar chimes in, "Since you're a gambler, how about we bet on it?" while discreetly passing a coin to Celis. Edgar proposes that Celis flips a coin. If heads, Setzer takes us to the Empire. If tails, Celis marries Setzer. Locke continues to object, but Sabin hits him in the side to calm down. Celis, trusting Edgar with the coin, asks Setzer if he's ready, and Setzer says, "Let's go." The coin is flipped, and it's heads. Setzer picks it up, seeing it's heads on both sides, and laughs. Celis says that the gambler has been hustled, and they're off. They marvel at the experience of flying. Setzer explains that he won't land too close to avoid being spotted, and that the group will have to walk to Vector. Having rested on the flight, the group decides that while walking, it's a good time to look into growing their magical abilities with the use of the magicite Ramu gave them. They fight some monsters roaming the overworld, learn some spells, and they talk about the experience as Celis helps them get acclimated. After some training, they approach the castle Vector where the Empire resides. Celis tells the others, "We're going to have to sneak in through the side here. Now our goal is the Magitech factory. I'm a little familiar with the area, so just follow my lead." They head in and Celis leads them to the factory. Once they enter, Edgar tells the group, "Alright, let's save these espers and get back to Terra." And the episode ends. Season 2, Episode 7, the season finale. The group is in the Magitech factory, and after they fight through some guards, including those in Magitech armor, they see just how the Empire has been able to produce the weaponry they have. Edgar, being familiar with tools, tinkers with some of the assembly lines to help slow down their manufacturing, but without disrupting production too much to avoid alerting anyone outside the factory. As they approach a door, they hear that one and only laugh, and they crack the door open and listen. Kefka is talking to the weakened espers, Ifrit and Shiva. While looking at Ifrit, Kefka says, "The best part of draining magic from you guys is that as I grow more powerful, feeling the warmth of your magical energy," he then shifts his gaze to Shiva, "I get to see your pathetic faces grow pale with weakened grasps for life." He then laughs again. "Well, down you go," and he pushes them down a giant trash chute. The group thinks to themselves how the Empire doesn't know that to truly gain the full magical properties of an Esper, they have to become magicite. Kefka turns toward the door and sees that the door is cracked and has a sneaking suspicion and decides to leave a different way and purposely has his exit known with a bogus comment of having to go see the Emperor. The group head into the room and can reason with what they heard that the Espers ended up down the chute, and so they all go down too. Ifrit and Shiva, having some strength, think they're enemies too, being human, and start to fight. Edgar tries to explain that they're friends, but the Espers aren't listening. Celis redirects a fire attack toward Edgar with her runic, saying talking won't work. Sabin casts his newly learned fire on Shiva, while Celis launches an ice attack toward Ifrit. The fight continues as Locke uses Cure to heal the team, and Edgar unleashes Bolt 2 on both of them. Although both Espers turn out to not be affected, they stop their attacks as they sense Ramu from the Bolt magic. "You have Ramu with you." Edgar responds, "Yes, we were trying to explain earlier. He sent us to try to save you and any other Espers here that we might also be able to help our friend. He entrusted himself to us as magicite, which the Empire who's been hunting your kind down do not know." Ifrit responds, "I see. Ramu is a very close friend of ours. We are grateful that you came to save us, but Shiva and I actually can't go much longer." Shiva adds, "However, if you're against the Empire, we gladly will follow Ramu and entrust our powers to you." Locke responds, "We are honored by your generosity, but are you sure you can't keep going? I can heal you now." Ifrit chuckles, "Your kindness is refreshing, but your curative magic cannot return the magical energy that's been drained. We entrust ourselves to you." They become magicite and the group takes them. Celis points out where they can go to lead them to where she believes they've been keeping Espers for research. They make their way using their new magic to defeat some more guards. They make it to the room Celis spoke of and see 6 Espers in large test tubes. The Espers sense their comrades in magicite form on them. Sabin wonders aloud if there's a switch anywhere to release them. Edgar points out a desk that looks to have a master computer system with an unlock hatch and goes to release the espers. Meduan speaks. "Thank you for releasing us. We know our comrades have entrusted themselves to you, and we shall as well." They transform the Magicite and float over to the group. Sid comes up after being alerted that the Esper's tubes were opened. "What is this? Oh, Celis, good to see you." Locke gives a slightly perplexed look from someone from the Empire being happy to see Celis when she betrayed them. Celis tries to explain to Sid, "It's good to see you too, but I'm actually no longer with the Empire." Sid asks, "Really? Because you just made a great discovery with these stones the Espers turned into. I'm sure the Empire will take you back." Locke stunned. "Wait, what?" Kefka enters the room with his laugh. "Ah yes, General Celis, your mission to infiltrate the Returners was such a success as you discovered Magicite." Kefka knows the term because he was spying on the group in their conversation with Ifrit and Shiva. Locke feeling betrayed. "You tricked us! Our time in Figaro Castle, your concern for me at the opera, and it was all just a mission for the Empire?" Celis shocked to hear Locke saying these things. "So that's what you think?" "I at least thought we had grown as close friends, but I must accept that trust is difficult to build. It's upsetting that you're choosing to believe Kefka over me." Kefka interrupts. "Oh, the heartstrings you were able to pull too. Well, now that we know of Magicite, time for the rest of you to be put out of commission. Guards, kill them." Celis launches an Ice 2 attack at the guards, freezing them. She turns to Locke and says, "I'm sorry you couldn't believe me, but let me do this one last thing for you guys." She performs a warp spell that transports Kefka, the guards, and herself out of the room. Locke falls to his knees, ashamed of himself. Edgar kneels down with him. "Hey, I'm sorry for how you're feeling. We have to get out of here though. Let's get back to the airship and I can sit with you through this." Locke thanks Edgar and gets up. Sid finally speaks up after this whole thing. He says that Celis can be trusted and that he didn't know she had defected. Seeing her conviction to help you all through confirms that what I've been thinking about too. That what we're doing isn't right. Here, quickly, follow me. Sid leads them to a path out of the factory and says, "Quick, run out of here and do what you need to do. I'm going to talk to the Emperor about stopping all this. Hurry, before more guards show up." Edgar thanks Sid and they run out of there. They make it to the airship. Setzer asks where Celis is, but Edgar says, "Don't worry, we'll meet up with her soon, but we need to fly out of here." Setzer, sensing the urgency, says, "All aboard, let's go." And that is Season 2. Now to go over some writing decisions. In Episode 1, we talk about how Edgar's castle has the crazy feature of not only going underground, but moving itself underneath mountains to emerge in a completely different spot. In the game, it's a quick transition. Here, we're having it require at least an overnight stay to make the journey. Additionally, we need to give everyone who lives at the castle a heads up that they're even moving. That just doesn't happen in the game. In Episode 2, this is where we're introduced to Rachel, who passed, but Locke insists on preserving her body. This is definitely not healthy behavior. But with magic being a thing, maybe, just maybe, there's some reasoning that can be accepted for Locke to try to bring her back. This is where I think it's good for Celis to set her boundaries of just wanting to be friends, because Locke isn't over her, and that's red flag energy. Also, in the game, you can recruit Shadow and sleep at the inn to unlock one of his dreams. It would be weird for the group to hire Shadow and immediately go to sleep for us to see one of his dreams, so I use an errand that Shadow can be paid for that requires him to stay an extra day, which lets him sleep, and then the group doesn't need to be there for that, but we get to still see the dream. For Episode 3, we need to show some love to Cyan and Gao, who are left behind, but their time can be used productively in recruiting Mog. It's a little earlier than when you can normally recruit him, but this works without the team having to randomly go out of their way to look for a guy that stole the hairpin. Also, since we stopped by the castle, Edgar got some new tools with Flash and Drill. Imagine these being tools that he has fairly easily strapped to himself and are not as big as shown in the game. For Episode 4, the group meets the impresario at the inn. I think that makes more sense than the group randomly going into someone's mansion without the owner there for them to talk to the impresario. Episode 5 is where we see some big changes. Ultros isn't here. A giant talking octopus is not trying to ruin the opera, but instead it's Siegfried. He was underused in the games and has some relation to Ultros in the games anyway, as Ultros name drops him in the Esper Caves later. Siegfried here has a motive to ruin the show too by having him rejected for the Draco role. In the game, it's possible for Ultros' reasons to ruin the opera to make no sense because your party at this time could consist of Locke, Celes, Cyan, and Gao, none of whom were on the river when he was first beaten. Alright, so done with my rant on Ultros, the octopus. So, Siegfried instead. Much better fan. This version of events also gives some explanation of what happened to the original Maria that was never addressed in the game. As for her whereabouts after the opera, we'll find out later. Not much to say about episode 6. I always thought it was interesting how Celes magically knew about Edgar's two-headed coin. In the game, it's not even in the key items for you to see that it's a two-headed coin. And then for episode 7, the Magitech Factory felt like a good endpoint for the season, so the 7-episode count worked out here. I think I did a decent job with how Kefka learned the Magicite term, since the Empire hadn't known about them before. And you might have noticed that in the fight against Ifrit and Shiva, the characters all used magic that could have legitimately been learned from the Magicite from Zozo. Locke had Kirin for Cure, Edgar had Ramu for Bolt 2, and Sabin had Siren for Fire. I skipped the number monster bosses and the crane fight. How are cranes from a stationary castle even supposed to stop an airship from just flying away? So, anyway, thank you for listening. Have a good one.